You might have an you might have an opportunity to work with. We are looking at Genesis again, Genesis chapter 6. We're going to finish up Noah and the flood. We'll talk about some particulars. How many of you have been to the Ark Experience in Kentucky? Raise your hand. How many have been to the Ark Experience in Kentucky? Oh, I would very much recommend you go. It's a lot of fun, and you learn a ton of stuff. Although I will say this: if you go do the whole Creation Museum Ark, just do the Ark. Creation Museum is okay, but Ark is the real thing to go do. It's quite fun, and you learn a ton. We'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff we learned while we were there about the Ark. I did want to close up this issue with the Nephilim. So I want to start off with maybe a little bit of discussion time. We're looking at verse 4, chapter 6, verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. Okay? And I want to make sure I always have a problem spelling this one. Nephilim. Okay. So I want you to discuss at your table. Just have a little, think about the philosophy of it. Why do you think so many people write so much stuff about this one verse? Why do you think so many people are so interested about this thing? Okay? Why is it that it occupies so much interest, especially in Christians' minds? This whole discussion of what Nephilim are and what they do and why they're great men of renown, all these kind of questions. Let's go ahead and just talk at your table a little bit about why is it that we do this? Why do we talk so much about these people? Okay? So I'll give you like 5 minutes just to discuss at your table. And you can read, verse 4 and also verse 5. Chapter 6 of Genesis, verse 4 and 5 are kind of in play. Just kind of talk about that for a second. Okay. What'd you come up with? What do you think the reasons are people are so fascinated by these verses? Why does it occupy? My mom, I love my mom to death. Please don't look poorly on her, but she sent me this book that was all about Nephilim, and like I don't have the heart to tell her like, Mom, you shouldn't be reading this book. But she wants me to read it and give her feedback on it, and I really don't want to read it because I'm worried it's going to be really bad. So why do you guys think that there's so many volumes written on this or videos made about these people? There is a weird human thing where we prefer mysteries to truth. We prefer mysteries to divinely revealed things. So if you gave maybe a youth group or some other group a choice, hey, we're going to study the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, where Jesus heals this person, or we can talk about the Nephilim, what are people going to choose? We can choose Nephilim every time. And here's the point. I think what God has given you to know about them is what he wants you to know about them. If he wanted you to know more, there would have been more there in the scriptures. Right? So here's the thing. Sometimes I think the problem lies in that we don't want to know what God wants us to know. We want to know what we want to know. What does that sound like? Name a story that sounds like. Garden of Eden. Right? We want to know what we want to know, not what God actually wants us to know. And let me ask you another question. What's important to know? What's the most important thing to know? You're overthinking. The most important thing to know is Christ's death and resurrection. And on that account, how much information has God given us on Jesus' death and resurrection? Oh my goodness, as much as we could possibly hope for. So I think sometimes we have to be beyond. I mean, we've all, well, I shouldn't say we've all, but a lot of us have raised kids. I mean, there are certain things you reveal to kids at certain ages, right? You don't tell your 6-year-old exactly how sex works and everything else. You just don't. That's not information you reveal to them at that time, right? So there's an understanding here that God does the same thing. There's just stuff that isn't important for our life as it stands. God wants us to make it to the finish line. He's going to give us everything we need to make it to the finish line, not to know everything in all of creation that he does. That's for him to know, not for us. What is for us to know? Christ's death and his resurrection. That is the most important thing. We need to know about that. Yeah? I think we're drawn to stuff like this because we want to know things that we're not supposed to know. Or maybe that maybe not supposed to know, but like, that sounds kind of like, but we don't need to know. Yeah, I mean, is knowing what Nephilim were going to change the story of Jesus? Not a plug nickel. It's not going to change it at all. But people just get obsessed about this stuff. See, the thing is, you guys are not spending enough time on YouTube or Facebook videos to know what I'm talking about. Every other YouTube video or that's a Christian one, there's a lot of like weird conspiracy people doing stuff right now, and like half these videos are about Nephilim. I'm telling you. Okay, how many of you saw the Noah's Ark movie that came out about, golly, would it be like 2012, I think, or something? It had Russell Crowe in it. Russell Crowe. Yeah, because that's what you need for Noah. You need the guy who played Gladiator. Yeah. Okay. Did anybody see the movie? Everybody see the movie? Okay. One of the worst pieces of garbage that was ever made. Okay? Terrible movie. And I was so embarrassed. I actually they didn't put much stuff on the previews. What they put in the previews looked pretty good. So like an idiot, I took my youth group kids to Noah's Ark, and then we left about 3/4 away from the movie, and I spent the next 3 weeks deprogramming them because it was so bad. It's one of the worst movies ever made. It doesn't follow the biblical story at all. There is one interesting thing, though. Those of you who did see it, do you remember those rock creatures? Nephilim. They're playing that verse up there. That's their take on it. Angel spirits covered in whatever, let's talk about some people think that Nephilim were angels having relationships, sexual relationships with women of man, and then giving forth babies that were like some kind of, weird angel-human hybrid, right? That's why they're so powerful and men of well-renowned. But the language, I would say to you, and there's a reason for this too. There's a reason for this. So this is this is usually pretty good, but here it's bad, I think, This is I have a bunch of these, the Ancient Christian Commentary on Scripture. So this is the early church fathers. So the generation between the apostles and in 300 AD, right? So that little bracket there. And, so let's see here. Let's see here, there was one. Yeah, here we go. So we have Nemesius of Emesa, Clement of Alexandria. We'll do that. Clement of Alexandria. The mind is led astray by pleasure, and the virgin center of the mind is not disciplined by the word. I'll skip to the good part. As an example of this for you is the angels who forsook the beauty of God for perishable beauty and fell as far as heaven is from the earth. And then this Nemesius of Emesa, of the incorporeal beings, only angels fell away, and not all of them, but some only that inclined to things below and set their desire on things of earth, withdrawing themselves from their relationships with things above, even from God. Then one of the other early church fathers says that the sons of Seth are the sons of God. So I think this is why the problem persists, is that some early church fathers were regarding this Bible reference of sons of God as fallen angels, and some early church fathers are saying sons of God is the sons of Seth. Okay? So you go to the biblical language, you go to the Hebrew, you look at it. I think, without a doubt, when the Bible, remember, this is Moses writing the book of Genesis. When Moses writes sons of God, he means the sons of Seth. Remember, coming out of Adam and Eve, how many branches of the tree are there? I have a little thing. We'll just do this real quick before we go on. I have it in here somewhere. There we go. So we have 3 lines to the tree. We have Abel. His line was cut. We have Cain. His line goes bad, like a brick of Limburger. And Seth. Seth's line, we know from when we read the what's it called, where we list all the people, what's that called? Thank you. When we read the genealogy, couldn't come up with the word. A bunch of the sons of Seth are good. Enosh is good. Enoch walks with God. He's good, right? Lamech. And then Noah is picked, basically, because he's good, although there's not a lot of pickings considering you got 3 lines here. But nevertheless, the sons of God are these fellows from Seth. That's what it's really getting at. And then we want to go maybe one step further. I did take a look at, I pulled out my peeper, the nature and properties of angels, okay? And one of the verses that was interesting that Pieper brought up was, he brought up the reference when Jesus says, when Jesus shows himself to the disciples in the Gospel of Luke, and he says, I have flesh and bones as the Spirit does not have. Right? Jesus makes that point of saying that he is flesh and bones, a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones. So if an angel is a spirit, which I think we should and we do agree that an angel is a spirit, not a fleshly thing, then how can an angel have relations with a woman when they don't have flesh and bone? And I think these rules apply both to good angels and also to fallen angels. And then Pieper doesn't actually talk about it much. He kind of glosses over it. He says that angels can, like the story of Samson. Samson's mother puts out bread, and then the angel comes and touches it, and it burns up, right? And so he uses this idea that whenever an angel appears, like in the story with Abraham, where the 3 people show up before Sodom and Gomorrah, and he says, well, this is kind of your metaphor, that an angel can eat, but it's more akin to fire burning up bread, not actually eating it like a person would. But Pieper also is before the idea of the Mashiach Yahweh became a thing. So we also believe that there is this special angel, the messenger of God, the messenger of Yahweh, and we believe that is Christ, showing up in the Old Testament, and he almost always does physical things, like, for example, who wrestles with God? Who wrestles Jacob? It's Jesus. Which is also really cool to think about, that like Jesus has some serious skills. Yeah, I think about like from, what's that movie from Taken? You don't know who I am. I don't know who I are, but I'm a man with a particular set of skills. Anyway, so Jesus wrestles Jacob all night. Jesus appears to Abraham, and he's the one who's eating the bread that Abraham prepares, as well as he prepares is it a lamb? Does Abraham prepare a lamb? I think it's a lamb at that meal, plus like milk and curds. So that's, Jesus is showing up, which is the exception to the rule then, was what I'm saying. Angels don't interact physically. They don't do physical stuff. They rain down fire and brimstone. They destroy Sennacherib's army, but they don't like eat things or touch things or interact with human flesh, especially to the point of having children. Angels are spirits. They don't have flesh and bones. So I would say the Nephilim argument is also thrown out, besides the sons of God issue. It's thrown out because angels can't do this because they're spirits. Are we okay with that? Hold on. Can you hold that one thought for a second? Okay, I do want to do this, but I just want to ask, are we okay with saying Nephilim are sons of Seth who married daughters of Cain? We okay with that? Okay, now answer your question. At Sodom and Gomorrah?
No, just before, before the destruction, because then they escorted him out of town.
Right. The angels are with him in the building. That's right. Yeah. But I think him setting out the angels, isn't that from Judges? That's not from the Sodom and Gomorrah one, is it? No. Them setting out their daughters. Is that? That's from Sodom and Gomorrah too? So, but I think it's Lot saying that, isn't it? Not the angels? Yeah. Yes, those would be. And then actually, I read in Pieper, he was talking about something interesting. He said about that. Yeah, he actually addressed a specific issue that. How did he word that? He worded it that he brought up this specific one. Yeah, here it is. Angels that take Lot and his wife and daughters by the hand, and the devil takes Christ into the holy city and sets him in the pinnacle of the temple. This influence is analogous to the one our immaterial soul exercises on our immaterial body. How is it accomplished is beyond our comprehension. So his idea here is, in other words, when your soul is heavy and down, does it affect your body? Okay, so what he's saying is that connection between your soul and your body is the same connection or reason why an angel, who is the spirit, can grab the body of Lot and pull it out of town. That's Pieper's explanation. I don't know if that is great, but that's his explanation for that. You're asking, like, how can a spirit grab a daughter or whatever and pull them out of town? Right. Yeah. Well, they take on lots of appearances. I mean, Ezekiel sees totally different things than men, right? So, I mean, I think the appearance is just for our sake. But for whatever reason, in that story, they can seemingly grab onto their arms. But my question would be, do they actually grab onto their arms, or is that also something other than? So, like, we're seeing angels, and they usually are shaped like young men, but that's just what we see. So, again, to that, the soul affects our body. Can the angel affect us and pull us out with actually grabbing our arm? I mean, is that just how they tried to explain what was happening? I don't know. So in other words, does a spirit in that Lot story have to touch the daughters of Lot? Not necessarily. It could be just pulling them by a soul spirit kind of thing. That's okay. No, it's a fun question. Honestly, I wasn't prepared to answer that one. I was lucky I read the angel thing because I had a little bit of it there. Okay, so then we're going on here then. Verse 5, the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals, and creeping things and birds of the heaven, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So that's how that chapter ends, and then we get into the flood. Jacob and I were talking about something really interesting the other day, and if I remember how we were talking about it, the recorded history from, you were saying from Noah forward is how many years? What was that conversation we had?
Well, we know Abraham is around 2000 BC.
Okay,
So, I mean, it all depends when you gauge, how old the earth is.
right,
So if you figure even like, let's say, 6 to 8,000 BC.
conservatively.
Let's say, the earth is 8,000 BC old to now. So, roughly 10,000 years. Genesis then 1 through 11, 1 through 10, 1 through 11,
Right,
encapsulates 6,000 years.
or thereabouts,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah.
The point being is this, is that a really, really interesting area of study people really interested in is ancient civilizations and their level of sophistication, how they could place stones like they did, stones that even now we can't lift, we can't figure out how they did it. And the point is that what can humanity do with 6,000 years? Or let's say very conservatively, even 2,000 years. I mean, think about the technology that's changed since World War I. And we're talking hundreds of years, okay? And yet, the one thing that is true of anything is like a impact or a great flood is a worldwide equalizer. No matter how technologically advanced you are, you can't do anything about that, right? When the fountains of the deep blow open and all the waters from above fall, doesn't matter how technologically savvy you are, you're going to get wiped out. Which then we're sifting through the remains now. We're finding all this stuff like, how is this even possible? It's like, well, God's in control. He can do what he wants to do. If he wants a great flood to happen to wipe out 4, 6, 2,000 years of technology, he can do that. And then it shouldn't surprise us then that immediately after the flood, they're able to build a great tower up into heaven that's concerning enough for God to come down and confuse their language, right? Think about how many of you can remember that your grandfathers on the farm knew how to do certain things to tractors and or to animals or some kind of farm thing that largely that understanding of how to do something has been forgotten? Can you think of one? That's 2 generations. That's 2 generations and it's already gone. Think about what it is for like 5 or 6, 7 generations, 2,000 years, 3,000 years. All that stuff gets forgotten. History just wipes it from the face of the planet. Okay. So going forward, I think probably what was the case is that man became very advanced and also very sinful, and God regretted making man and then wiped them back down to the Stone Age. I shouldn't say I don't believe that. That's a possibility. It's a possibility. Okay. So then we get into the flood and we get into the ark. How many of you think the ark is a reality, that it happened exactly like it said it does in the Bible? Okay, you all should raise your hands because it did. How does God work out some of these things? Well, you learn that the ark experience is really fun. We always assume that God brings in, because of all the pictures we've seen of the ark, that God brings in full-grown adults. What will be the most economical way to move a pair of animals from one side of the globe to the other? Say it louder. Babies. You get to babies, even of dinosaurs. How big are dinosaur babies? About this big. Seriously, a brontosaurus baby starts out about this big. So can you move all of the creatures of creation, or the ones that are important, in one boat if you want to? Yeah, if the infants come, you get like toddlers or young rhinoceros are about the size of a dog. A young elephant's about the size of like a small pony. They're not big when they're babies. Can you get them all in one boat? You can. Can God make animals come 2 by 2? Well, he created the heavens and the earth, and he rose the sun after 3 days. If we can't swallow the fact that God can make animals come to the ark, then we got a bigger problem, right? It's a faith issue. When you go to the ark, what they show you is that the ark's shape, as it's described in the Bible, is very robust when it comes to waves. It would have handled the waves very well, and it was so big that it also handled the waves in such that a novice sea person wouldn't get sick, right? Like, can you imagine being on that ark? I think in total they're on the ark 120 days. Is that right? Longer than that. Yeah, that's right. It's 40 days of rain, then it's 40 days of, yeah, so it's like basically a year, calendar year, or thereabouts. And if you're a land lover, you're going to get sick, and you could get sick to the point of, if you're continually throwing up, what's going to be the problem? Dehydration. You might die, right? So the ark itself is built that it limits that kind of movement. So even normal land lover people, like Israelites, because they're not sailors, can be in an ark and not get sick. Okay. At the ark, there's this really cool demonstration when you kind of first walk in. They used ancient examples of Greek ships, so the oldest ones they could find. And what the Greeks would do is they would laminate boards. They would run, so if think if you're looking at the wall of the ship from the front. So the wall of the ship, you're looking at it, so I'm showing the layers of it. They would run planks kind of off center like this, and then they would put hard ones on the outside and soft ones on the inside. They'd layer it with pitch, and then they'd peg with oak pegs through. And what it would create is a hull of the ship that was stiffer than its individual parts. When it's all put together, it's actually stiffer, but it also has the ability to flex, unlike one big piece of wood that would be the same size. So they think this is probably, the Noah's Ark was probably 3, maybe 5 layers that were all pegged together. And when you think about it that way, it kind of starts to make sense, doesn't it? That would actually work. It's really cool when they talk about how they built the ark at the Ark Experience. They had to fell, I think one of the ones that ran was, I think the stern one. I read the little plaque on the stern. The keel timber was this huge tree from down south, a big cypress that was like a couple 100 years old. It was gigantic, and it was one piece. The whole tree was shaped into that one piece. It's huge. But also, it does make you think that if they could build it, that it's not out of the line, that Noah could have built it as well, right? There's this really cool thing that we learned as well in the Ark Experience, where they had this idea called I think they called it a moon door. A moon door is what they called it. So they would have a lot of times you see the ark, it's kind of like this, where you see the ark, and then there's this thing like that, yeah? There's a thought process that perhaps there was this bilge area, okay? It went through the bottom, and there was like a valve, a one-way valve. So when the boat goes into a wave, the water comes up. And when the boat comes up off the wave, what happens? The water goes down. And that process of the water going up and down and up and down, if you have a valve here, and this is sealed on top, it pushes air into the boat. Because the problem is, anyone who's ever raised horses or animals, what happens in the spring after everything starts thawing out? More than terrible. The ammonia is so bad, your eyes water, right? If you have a bunch of animals creating stuff that's going to create ammonia, you need airflow going through the whole thing, or else it doesn't work, right? So this is one of the theories. They found evidence of older boats that did similar things, and I think this is how they might have pushed air throughout the whole ark. So they'd have vents that would let the old air out, and then this big moon door would be pushing air into the boat constantly, fresh air coming in. So there'd be a valve on top and a valve here. This would let air in, and this would push air into the boat. It's pretty cool, right? It's interesting that you mentioned that. I will actually talk about this real quick. So the ark was not steered. There was no steerage in the ark. You notice that in the scriptures. It never talks about it being steered. It just floats. But the question would be, when you have a boat that probably has a hull shaped like this or something, it's probably just a straight U shape or maybe a little bit of a V shape. How do you prevent it from falling over, flipping over, right? This was a real thing. Egyptian boats and Greek boats did this. They would have long poles on the bottom. And then suspended from the poles, they would put ropes and they put stones hanging off these timbers. Okay? And the stones would help keep the boat from flipping over and also would help it track straight to a certain degree. So that's how the ark kept from flipping over. Yeah, so it would have probably what it was. The way the ark experience describes it is they probably had two, one on either side, and then the weights were hanging down to keep it from flipping over. Which is interesting because this is kind of the same thing you do with pontoons right now, right? If your pontoon's a little shaky, what do? You put another one in the middle. You put a tri-pontoon, a third one, or I saw a guy who had a small boat that was tippy, and what he did is he strapped on some flotation on either side, and then that stabilized the boat. It's not a new thing. It's something we've always known as human people. You'll find this interesting, if I can get to it. Do you buy have you ever seen the ark stones, the anchor stones? What do you think of those? You buy them? I'm asking Pastor Smith. You ever seen them? Okay, I think I can find them. Okay, let's go to, that'll probably be okay. So, not far from the place where the ark is, where they think the ark, there's a very notorious, a lot of people talk about it. For a while, it was kind of poo-pooed as not being real, and now with the new LiDAR craze, where they do LiDAR, they research underneath it, they found that this ark site on the Mount Ararat might actually have some stuff underneath the surface that would point to it actually being the ark. And the funny thing is too, you talk about early church fathers and stuff. They all point to this place on Mount Ararat, and they definitively say that's where the ark is. And then over time, right, we forget things or we become doubtful or whatever the case may be. Along the way to that place where the ark is, a bunch of these stones are dropped. They're just there. You see them all over the place. I don't know, because drilling a hole through a rock is not a hard thing to do. And if you have one in your town, then you got a reason for people to come and see your town. I don't know. I don't know what I think about these. I want to believe they're true. They have a lot of graffiti and coins. So Christians came and left coins and left graffiti on them because they were pilgrimaging to the site, seeing them. So they have a bunch of these on the way, which would make sense as the water starts to drain and go away and the ark's coming to its final resting spot. These things are going to get caught on the ground as you're traveling across it and fall off, right? So they kind of like the ark kind of leaves a path of them until it comes to rest on Mount Ararat. I think I have a picture of that in my presentation somewhere, if I can find it. I think it's down here. Oh no, it's right here. So this is, where's that? Oh, there it is. This is where, I gotta turn around. Right here, this is where we think the ark landed. And I don't know if I have a picture of that. I think most of the people have probably seen it. Oh shoot, went back to the right. See if we can get a picture of it. The Ozark Water Park. Whoops. Let's see. Let's go to images. I'll find one. Here it is, right here. Seen that one? New tab. Okay. So this is on Mount Ararat, and you can see the outline here, and the outline here. And they've been doing LiDAR things recently. So a guy named, what's his name again? Wyatt, Ron Wyatt. He was a Christian archaeologist. He's been kind of discredited as being kind of not truthful, and so it's hard to like trust his discoveries. But the other problem is Turkey's a Muslim country. They don't let a lot of Christian people in there to see this place, so it's hard to do any research on it. There's lots of things been found here that suggest this probably is the Ark, and their LiDAR stuff they can do, I think, without being on the ground. That's why they're doing research on it now, and they're doing ground penetrating radar stuff, and they're finding things underneath all of this that would suggest there's like structures in here that this is the Ark. So, then going back to the picture then, here, what I was pointing out is with this one, Göbekli Tepe has been buried, basically. They're not researching it. And what you see here is, see these little gates here? Like there's animals coming out of gates, and this is where the Ark is. This is where Göbekli Tepe was built. Some people think, and Göbekli Tepe outdates a lot of other places, like the pyramids and other spots. It's older. Some people think this is where Noah went to build his altar after he came out of the Ark, because there's like depictions of all kinds of animals on all these pillars, and they're coming out of stalls. So Turkey buried it, and they say they did some kind of archaeology excuse where they said, oh, we're gonna bury it for like 10 years so as to not disturb it, and then we're gonna come back and look at it later. So seems kind of strange. Anyway, so they're on the Ark for a period of time. They finally get off the Ark, and then they get off the Ark, like, look at chapter 9 real quick. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So I have this really cool video. Check this out.
According to the Bible, the earth is only around 6,000 years old. Is there any evidence to support that? Indeed there is. The population of the world today is about 8 billion people. Do you know if you start with 6 people, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's 3 sons, and their 3 wives?
According to the Bible, the earth is only around 6,000 years old. Is there any evidence to support that?
Indeed there is. The population of the world today is about 8 billion people. Do you know if you start with 6 people, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's 3 sons, and their 3 wives, and let that population grow at the rate of about 0.5%, which is very conservative, for 4,500 years, that's how long ago the flood was, we get 8 billion. So the Bible's record of history is exactly consistent with the population of the world. We find soft tissue in dinosaur bones showing that they cannot be millions of years old, including the presence of carbon-14 in dinosaur bones. Once again, consistent with an age of only a few thousand years.
Okay.
According to the Bible, the earth is...
So that's interesting. And then I found this other one too, which is kind of cool.
The moon is actually moving away from the Earth due to tidal forces. You might know that the moon induces tides on the Earth. That's where you get high tide and low tide. So it's pulling on the Earth's oceans. So those tidal bulges actually get ahead of the moon, and they pull forward on it. And when you pull forward on something in orbit, it moves out. If you run that movie backwards, in the past, the moon would have been closer to the Earth, wouldn't it? If you run the numbers, the Earth and Moon would be touching at 1.45 billion years in a hypothetical past. My point is they have to be younger than that because you can't have less distance than 0 distance.
It's not possible.
But the problem is, in the secular view, the Earth and Moon are supposed to be about 4.5 billion years old. But you see, they can't be older than 1.45 billion years. That's a problem in the secular view. By the way, in the creation view, 6,000 years ago, the moon was about 750 feet closer to the Earth. So it's not a big difference in 6,000 years. But over billions of years, it's a problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems.
Now again, they could solve it by saying, well, the rate was different in the past, but then they're giving up uniformitarianism, which is a secular assumption by which they get the billions of years in the first place.
Does that make sense, what he's saying? He's saying that they can track the trend of how far the Earth is moving away every year because of tidal forces, and then they run the math backwards. And at 1.45 billion years ago, the moon is literally inside the Earth, which is impossible. So either the math is wrong or their presumptions are wrong. And they're not saying it's 1.4, they're saying it's like 4 billion years old. So there's no way that, does that make sense? For things I can track even now, it doesn't work out. Yeah? Fun stuff, huh? So the descent, I wanted to show that population one. The sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth get out of the ark, and they become, they are fruitful and multiply, as well as all the other creatures too. They're fruitful and multiply. So you kind of wonder, like, well, can these creatures support man? Well, if they're kind of following those kind of population trends, surely that's not a problem. And people start building up really. It's that kind of that curve that I was showing. I think I have it on here somewhere. The curve that, I don't know if I can find it. Put it in here somewhere. Yeah. The population curve just takes off. When you get to a certain point, it's just exponentially, it just happens that way. When you get to be around here, if you're kind of like, when you double something, right, it goes slow and then all of a sudden it just takes off. It's the same thing with population trends. It goes kind of slow for a while and then whammy, it goes really fast until you get to the point where now you can only support so many people, right? So the world going from 6 people to 4 billion people is not impossible, okay? After the sons of Ham and Shem and Japheth have kids, we get this genealogy, and then finally we end up where we were talking about, chapter 11, Tower of Babel. All the people of the world had one language. Why do they have one language? Because they're from the same family. They're from the same tribe. And then after that, everything goes wacky because of Tower of Babel. They really play up at the ark experience that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were different skin colors, which is why you get like Nordic people, you get African people, and you get European people. Or not European people, native people. So that would include like Native Americans, Eskimos, Islanders, and Mexicans too, Southern American peoples, right? They kind of play that up when you go there, that they all three have different kind of skin colors, and so that's where you get the variety. That part, I think, is speculative at best. They're just inserting things in. It's kind of interesting, though. If you ever go there, you'll see it. I wouldn't know about that. I think we do believe in, as Christian people, we believe in speciation or small c or microevolution. So can an animal adapt to its environment specifically over time? Like foxes, white foxes are albino regular foxes, but the white foxes in the Arctic had an advantage over their colored brethren, so they succeed. They're the ones that go on. Can that happen? Sure. Can a fox turn into a person? No, this is not how that works, right? They fine-tune themselves to the situation they're in. Could that be true of people too? I mean, I suppose. I don't know. I've never seen anything myself to suggest that. So that kind of carries us through the flood. I didn't do much about the flood story because we've read the flood story a bunch of times. I didn't think that's what we were really interested in. We talked kind of the time before and the time after. They have plenty of kids, and then the world's repopulated, and God said he's never going to destroy it again, so that's why we never have this problem ever again, and we're at the population level we are at now. Any thoughts or questions, comments? Go ahead. Okay. Well, I don't know if we'll ever know definitively. I'll tell you what answers in Genesis believe that there were dinosaurs on the ark. Brian Young does a presentation on dinosaurs. I wish I had the picture of it right now, but he shows this really funny picture of he has this one sheet, and on it there are 15 different types of dinosaurs, okay? And then you look at them all, and you're like, those are all Triceratops with different horns. But since this Triceratops, its horn goes like this, and this Triceratops horn goes like this, and this Triceratops has 2 horns instead of 3, and they're all different dinosaurs, when in reality, any hunter knows when you go out and go whitetail hunting, you're never going to find 1 deer or 2 deer who have the same antlers. That's just not a thing, right? What I mean to say is, could we have dinosaurs on the ark? I think so, because I think our process or thought process of how many species of dinosaurs would actually have to be on the ark. And I don't think it would be as many as we think. Right? Because when you start looking at all these various species of dinosaurs, you realize that they're all kind of the same thing. Like, these are all Tyrannosauruses, these are all Triceratops, these are all Brontosauruses. They're just different sizes and a little bit different, right? And then they adjust to their environment. So I think that there's reasonable evidence to suggest that, yes, there are dinosaurs on the ark. And the really interesting things you find in Mayan culture, Chinese culture, island culture, in Aztec culture, in Native American culture up north here, like Inuit and other places, and also in then English culture, medieval people in Europe consistently talk about what? Dragons, right? And perhaps it was just, I mean, we were really effective at wiping out buffalo. How long did it take us to wipe out the buffalo? A couple of years? So humans are excellent at wiping out species. So if we wanted to wipe out dinosaur species, I think we could if we really wanted to. We've done it before. Oh, there's plenty of things. Carrier pigeons. I mean, the list goes on. Dodo birds. I mean, we've extincted a lot of creatures. We're really good at it. So, my personal opinion, I think dinosaurs got on the ark. Yeah, I do. Anything else? Right. Right. Well, it's the same thing with Adam naming all the animals. I mean, do we think Adam can name every variety of parakeet? No. He named 1, right? Same thing with, yeah, it's the exact same deal. The kinds are like the specific types of things. He didn't name every different subspecies. Yeah. So, I would agree with that. Anything else? You have Bible study next week, right? And you're covering again? Oh, he doesn't know. After Pastor Smith is done next week, I'm going to be covering AI stuff. I have a Bible study prepared to talk to you about how AI can fool us and how do we kind of trust what we're seeing with our eyes, hearing with our ears, maybe even tasting with our mouth. We're going to talk about that going forward in the next couple of weeks. I hope it'll be interesting for you. I know it's something we all are very concerned about. So let's pray the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, for thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Yeah.
AI stuff. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then you look closer at the face.